are split left and right. And in my opinion, I think it's a little bit too wide, actually. I think the gun is almost the center of the frame where the sound's coming out, but it's almost all left channel. And then this explosion that happens over here, that's pretty far right, but it feels like it's only coming out of the right speaker. So, oh, I have to turn the compressor back on. All right, so to do that, Audition has a plugin called, under stereo imagery, called Stereo Expander. And how this works is you can make things go even wider if you want. You can go to 200% here. And if I solo this, you'll really hear the left and right. So super wide. But I'm going to drop it to 50% and see if that feels more in line with what I was hoping for. Yeah, I think so. This is something that we can automate as well. Under here, we can go to the stereo expander and we can put in the stereo expander in here. And if there's moments like this where it's just this section that I wanted to narrow it down, I can return this to 100 or thereabouts if it lets me. And that means it's going to stay the normal stereo width until it gets to this point, and it'll drop down. We can actually watch it do that. Here. So I'll move down. So any parameter within a plugin is automatable using the keyframe track here. So it's really just a matter of knowing what you want to adjust and where. Let's look at this spot here. I'm just visually seeing that this one is pretty heavy in the left channel. Yeah, that actually works out pretty well because it explodes as he's jumping off frame. Okay, so let's listen to this down again and see how it's feeling. Okay, my only thought at this point is that it is, as much as I like it, I think our game sounds are just too loud. So I'm dropping down 3 dB and see how that fits. I think that freedom is out of sync. Let me check that. I'm assuming that's supposed to hit when the flag hits. So we need to move our music here. So I thought the volume in this section with the guns came in a little strong. So I'm going to drop that down just a little bit. Let's play with that again. actually want that that gun sound to pop out too, because I really like that. So that's actually standing up pretty well in and of itself. And I think the next thing would be to add in our sound design. However, I'm going to change this up a little bit, and I'm actually going to just solo all of our sound design and see how it's working together in and of itself. And in the film world, this is called pre-mixing or pre-dubbing. So you do a sound effects premix or a dialogue premix or music premix. The idea is that when the elements get to the final mix stage, each one works in and of itself by itself. So you can add the dialogue on top of it, and the sound effects sound good by themselves. I'm going to shrink this down just a hair to be able to see more of these effects. All right. All right, so first of all, those are too big. So let me see which ones they are. So just by looking at the waveform, I can tell that these three are probably the culprits. Now, there's not a way, at least as far as I know, in Audition to grab the volume bar on multiple clips together. What you can do is go to Properties and go to Clip Gain, and we can drop this down, say like -6. Now that's not adjusting the bar -6, it's just adding a clip gain to the clip. So we can, maybe we need a little bit more than that. And then maybe bring these guys in with it. So might be a little loud. I can tell you right now, I think these are too loud. That zip line. A little late. Looks like we clipped somewhere. Yeah, these are loud again. So drop that down. All right. Just kind of massage these volumes a little bit more. Just try and get a little bit more attack out of it as they punch up. Like this section here. All right, so let's look at, again, the benefit of busting things down is that you can do things to the overall signal path of all your sound effects. All these sound effects, I think, would benefit from maybe just pushing up the highs just a little bit, kind of like what we did with the game sound effects as well. So, just a little bit of a shelf on the top end. We have plenty of low end, maybe a little too much actually. We can shape that just a little bit here. Clean up some of that low mid as well, around 200. And this is just things that I'm hearing as I'm listening through what I would do in this particular case. So now, one thing I'm noticing is that all of our sound effects, as they kind of add up, we are clipping the input of our bus here. So just a quick way to fix that is if we highlight all of our clips here, minus 10 on these, and now they're all that might have been too much. Let's try it again. Maybe just 4 dB. Okay, so we'll go back to our sound effects bus. We added in that EQ. I typically don't, but in this case, it might work to help us balance some of the stuff out since we have so much going on, to add in a little bit of a compressor. I don't think I'll push too much on this, but maybe just graze it a little bit. Just those louder points, just to keep them in control. So ratio, we'll do like a 3:1, and then attack. I'm okay with letting some of those peaks cut through. In this case, and then release. Let's do a nice, reasonable release. Let's take a look and see how much that's pushing. Two. It looks like we're still peaking too much. Back to properties. That's 8. Yeah, these are. I meant for these white flashes to be more of a felt thing than a. Okay. Other applications. Other applications such as Pro Tools, Nuendo, Logic, when you do a clip gain like this, it actually adjusts in proportionate to the others. Now, I just got burned because this clip gain adjusts everything to this number. and I always forget that when I work in Audition, is that the clip gain is not proportional. It's fixed. So when I did that, I lost the those volume changes I did earlier to this group of clips here, as well as the adjustments I made to this whole section here. So if you recall, I had dropped this down to -9 and then -6 before I even started working on this, but now they're all -8. So just a good reminder for me too that you know, each app works a little differently. I feel that this should be a feature that it should behave the way I described, where if I highlight all these clips and then I want to drop all these clips by 3 dB, it should know that the -8 ones will go down to -11 and the -14 will go down to -17 and the -17 will go to -20. But it doesn't. So even if I grab the wheel here at 0, it starts adjusting them all to the same number. So, lesson learned. So these guys, I wanted to drop -14. All right, so let's see how that's working in the mix here. There's a really good chance we'll need to write some automation in here as well. Okay, so right away I'm feeling the game sounds are still probably a touch on the loud side. Bring those down. I need some more resolution on that. And I think our sound effects will lose them now. So let's just bring them up to 0 and see how that works. I'm just going to do a global adjustment. I think we're really close. It's just that kind of fine detail stuff where you know, it's that last 20% in a mix to get things to sit really well together. I think we have all the appropriate pieces together right now. It's just a matter of getting them to gel and sit really well together. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's give that a shot. Losing a little bit too much of the voice. That's the wrong move to pull that back. So those clicks at the end are definitely way too loud. So one thing I'm feeling here is there's a couple different ways you can do this. I think for this case, I'm going to just add another track to add some reverb to the sound effects. Some of them are just feeling a little close, and I want to push them back into the mix a little bit. So to do that, oh, I had the wrong thing. So let's remove that track. There's a couple different ways you can go about it. You can either add a separate bus and then have the reverb on the bus and then have the bus feed your output. One of the things I was going to show you, though, is splits output, and that kind of messes up that workflow. So the other way you could go about it is to insert it directly onto your sound effects group, just like we've been doing everything else. I guess I'll use the built-in one again. It's the studio verb, yeah. So I'm going to use the Great Hall again, but drop the decay a little bit here. So I'll give this a solo. So this is a case where I want to mess around with this wet and dry relationship. So I think I'm even going to drop it even more. So it's just a little bit of verb is getting in there. So it's 80% of the dry signal, 20% of the wet reverb sound. So especially with those clicks there, we're getting a little bit sense of space on them. So we added reverb to these, I remember, but some of these other clicks could benefit from them. You know what, let me boost this up to 50 just to get a comparison, make sure it's working. I think it's these highs that I want to get some more of. Yeah. So back that back down to, let's try 30 and 70. All right. So let's see how those are working now with the whole thing. All right. I would say that mix is coming together for sure. At this point, that last 10% is going in and, individually adjusting any sound effects that need to be tweaked, maybe pushing specific words out if you're losing some of the words. Even some of these game sounds, I feel like we're losing just a touch of these knives. I think we could use a couple more of these knives sound effects to pop out as he's running through here. So it's just, making small little adjustments to kind of finesse it around these areas. And I think sound effects, I'm gonna pop this back up to like -1 just to see how we're doing here. I think we're squashing a little bit too much of the dynamics out of this with the compressor. Losing a lot of the punch that we built into that. Transformer sound now is sticking out like a sore thumb. Let's save that. Let's try that. I think these hum pieces that we put in are just a little prominent. Is that one? Yeah. All right. Great. So the only thing left to do, and I think that mix is working pretty well. Now, at this point, I would probably send it off to the client to see what they thought, and then they would send a bunch of changes to me and say, okay, we need to change this, this, and this, and it's a bit of back and forth until we're both happy, and then at this point, we have some headroom left. And like I said, this is for web, so it really, I really think it's a good idea to push things up when distributing on the web. So we look at this. Looks like we got about 8 dB or so of headroom to do this. You can do it here. You can just turn it up, 8 dB. But there's a good chance you'll clip, so that's not the best idea. A better idea is to use a level maximizer or a brick wall limiter if you have one. In Audition, they have something called hard limiter. So here you tell it the maximum level. So I'll do 0.5 minus down. Input boost, we said about 8 dB is what we're doing. And then this lookup ahead time and release time are pretty average. Those are decent to stick. So now I can watch this down again and check it out. There you go. I think that's a decent mix for web for this piece. So now one of the things that a client will often ask for is splits. And how you do that is we can actually do an export multi-track mix down. Actually, let me set a range. So I'm going to set the start of the file and then a little bit after the end, my in and out point. And then if I go to export, multi-track mixdown time selection, we have these, export window, as you would expect. So let me drop down to our project folder, media, class files. And just for my own workflow, I always standardize by making an export folder within there to call this. We'll call this 206 Broforce mix. Say save. 48 kilohertz is fine. Bit depth, I usually go 24-bit just to make it compatible with as many systems as needed. And then here's the interesting thing that you can do. So we will take the master stereo output, as you would expect, but I'll also take the output from my buses. So I'll do a music, a voice, game sound, and sound effects. Now, the only problem is they're not at mix level because we put this limiter on our master output. But if we didn't do that, and we put this hard limiter on each one of these outputs, we could do a batch export and just do it in one output and get all the files all in one go. And definitely for the next project, we'll do that because we'll set up stereo buses and surround buses so that they all able to be exported together. But for this case, we're just going to take our stereo output and say, okay, and we'll call this, I like to put stereo mix on there. And we say, okay, it bounces it down. All right, and then next what you would just do is you would solo the voice pass export. So multi-track times selection, and just highlight that file to get the naming. And then instead of mix, we'll call it voice. We can call it VO for short. Voiceover, then hit export. Okay, and then next we'll grab our music bus and do the same thing. Export time selection. Music. So the idea is if you give these mixes back to an editor or someone who's going to master these to a video project, if they need to make an edit or they need to work with these separate elements, as long as they keep them at 0 dB, the mix will stay intact. We can lump all of this together, game SFX and standard sound effects and beeps. They all would fall under sound effects. So export mix down time and call it SFX. So one small thing that we didn't touch on, but we'll definitely explore more in the next class, especially with surround sound, is panning. Most of our effects were stereo effects here, so they have both left and right channel information. Gives you a little bit of stereo imaging, but you can certainly work with panning to help create a fuller mix and denser mix, but also to follow the action with things on the screen. So all this being said, that about covers it for our Broforce trailer. And if you guys want to get a jump on next week's project, I've included that in this week's files as well. There's the MOG205 project movie. So feel free to get a jump on this as well. And I will see you guys next time. Take care.